All right. Welcome to another episode of Mediocre Dads Bible Study. I am your host, Quan. I go by Q, of course. And right next to me is my co host of the Mediocre Dads Bible Study. That is MB. MB, say hello to the crowd.
Hello and welcome. Sorry for the delay. We had some technical difficulties, so we realized we were supposed to start at 8:30. So we're asking for your patience and understanding. So we'll definitely try to be on time next week.
Oh, yeah. Listen, y'all. I apologize. It never fails. When I'm doing things, getting everything set up. Like last night, I went live, and those who watch, I appreciate it. Go ahead and check out the video if you haven't. And it seemed like that went flawless. I was on Instagram, Instagram Live, and everything. It seemed like that was a flawless thing. But now,
It's all about the Bible study.
yeah, as soon as the Bible study goes to start, hey, something needs to happen here, right? It's funny. Because whether or not, some things out there trying to stop it, but it just means we're doing the right thing, right? Maybe, hopefully, fingers crossed. That being said, guys, welcome to another episode of Mediocre Dads Bible Study. On this episode of Mediocre Dads Bible Study, we are going to discuss a very serious topic. And I've spoken about this topic prior. However, providing it from, giving the insight from a spiritual lens, if you will, has never been applied on the podcast here, but also I think it's important that the spiritual lens is applied because, unfortunately, what ends up happening when someone takes their life, such as due to suicide, and I think a lot of what they're missing is that spirit, is that connection with God. Because sometimes we feel alone and just by ourselves, and there's nothing that can help us, and we want something to help us, and we want to feel loved and a connection, but we're not feeling and we're not getting it. And so then, these bad thoughts for some people can lead down a very dark path, into a path in which is just, it's almost like a hole you're in, and it's hard to get out of that hole. You know what I mean? And so I would say that, again, I think this topic is a very important topic. And for those who have read Volume 1, that it is the first topic, or the first chapter of his book here. And it's titled something else. Chapters.
Chapter 1 is entitled "Why Must Soldiers Die?"
Yes.
Because of suicides, and that's the meat of the desire behind that particular chapter. And it's definitely something very dear, because during my service time of 30 years, I've had 3 different occasions where we had to deal with that. So it's definitely not something that, I know it's something that the military takes very seriously, as well as the civilian sector, but if you pay attention to statistics and some of the things I looked up on Google, it's still a struggle to this day. And I got out in 2017, the end of April. So nothing has changed from the standpoint that we still have way too many military personnel, veterans, and civilians that take their lives at such a high rate, even with all the training that the military provides. So there's so many different paths that lead to that, to that desire to take your own life. And we just want to talk about those things and maybe some preventive measures, if you will, during this particular episode that might be able to help someone out there contemplating suicides. So we definitely want to make sure you get help,
Yes.
because help is available. And there's no better help than my Father in heaven. So we definitely want to talk to you briefly about that.
Absolutely. So kind of getting right into it, MB always comes with the definitions and what Google has to say, because Google, not for us, but for others, is God. And, what Google says is deemed holy, for others, not for us. And I'm not being sarcastic when I say that. I may sound like it, but that's not my intention. I'm not being sarcastic when I say that. For others, maybe.
Definitely
For us,
a lot
no.
it's a lot of information out there. The biggest thing, and like I was sharing with Q earlier, I do a lot of Snapchats, a snapshot, if you will, of a lot of statistics. So that way I don't get in trouble. I like to be broad across the board, but I'm right in the wheelhouse of what we're talking about.
Yes.
And I like to see what Google has to say about a lot of things because I find it somewhat interesting. So under suicides in the military, this is what Google had to say. Military personnel are more likely to make a suicide attempt or die by suicide if they are experiencing intense emotional pain. This could include depression and trauma, such as post-traumatic stress. The risk for suicide increases when military personnel experience both depression and post-traumatic stress together. Alarming, suicide rates among the military and veterans can be traced to the stress and trauma from the long wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. But those conflicts are over, and suicides remain at what the Pentagon calls an unacceptable high level as of March the 21st of this year. So we see that they are still dealing with it. And then when we look at the suicides in the civilian sector, according to Google, depression is the most common condition associated with suicide, and it is often undiagnosed or treated. Conditions like depression, anxiety, and substance problems, especially when unaddressed, increase the risk for suicide. So as you can see, they kind of mirror each other because they both deal with depression, some kind of mood, or some kind of being put out there, like post-traumatic stress, how you deal when you've been in a situation. And you notice how the military mentioned war, but war has been over for some time, and yet we still have a high level of suicides within the military itself. And in the book, we talk about these things because it has a lot to do with the atmosphere that is set that a person work in. We never know when somebody's going to be on their last leg. We don't know what the pillar that's holding that person up, whether that's their mom, it could be their spouse. And once they go to war, if they're not fitting in, they're not made to feel like part of a family within the military itself or in the civilian sector, then when they lose that one foundational piece that's been holding them up all together all this time, whether that's a mother, significant other, or whatever, now they're barely hanging on. And if the atmosphere, whether you're working for Walmart or in the military or in the Pentagon, if it's a hostile environment where you feel you're neglected, looked down upon, talked down to, and not being treated fairly, this opens the door for depression. Mm-hmm. And in those atmospheres, it grow into something much worse, which could lead a person to want to take their lives.
Yeah, I would always tell leaders, I would always encourage other leaders that I was, similar to what you said, you never know what someone's going through. And I said, it's really easy, to point out a person's downfall or even pitfalls, right? Because so for those who are not in the military, for the audience who's not in the military, kind of give me some context, if you will. When a soldier or soldiers get in trouble, 9 times out of 10, everybody in the unit knows it, and it's very quickly you become ostracized / isolated from the group, and because people don't want to associate with negativity, they don't want to be seen in the light of the negative light that you have being shown on you currently, and so I tell people, while that soldier or soldiers made a mistake, you have no idea some of the things behind what led to that decision of that said mistake. Why do I bring that up? Well, what I have noticed since in my time in the military is most soldiers who end up unfortunately committing suicide have something going on in their personal life, but also some negative action is being pursued within their military life, and it's unfortunate that they feel that the only route in which they could take is that, but they end up doing that, and it's sad. It saddens the unit, right? Because what ends up happening after the fact is, even though we all know those soldiers were in trouble, but if one of them, or God forbid, a few of them end up taking their life, everyone is like, oh man, we're going to miss them. It was unfortunate. But 2 days ago, we wanted to isolate them. We didn't want to talk to them, right? And this is what I tell people. I was like, you never know what someone's going through. So while it's really easy to isolate yourself and disassociate yourself from people who are in trouble, I said, why? Because if the roles were reversed and you were in that situation, all you would want is someone just to say, hey, man, I know you're going through some things, but, you made a bad decision. You made a bad choice. But, that doesn't define who you are. And it's so easy to say that one bad choice that we make defines who we are. And so that is what leads to people in the military ostracizing and even isolating these individuals. I had a soldier, a friend of mine. I would say we're friends. I wouldn't say we were best of friends. I'm not going to sit here and pretend and lie to y'all like we were best of friends. We were acquaintances. We're very familiar with each other, knew each other, talked to each other on a daily basis because he worked in the other section within the detachment. And my leaders who were in my unit, Comfort and Chaos, who I'm talking about. First Sergeant, who I'm talking about. This individual in March, unfortunately took his life, and 15 years of service, but he was going through something. I'm not going to put all his business out there, but he was going through some adverse action within the military. He wasn't going through adverse action, but there were other things going on within the military, and it led to him doing that, and it played a huge part into how everyone reacted, because he was one of the happiest dudes you'd ever meet. You know what I mean? Like it could just be pouring raining outside and there's been no sunshine for 5 days, right? Just imagine, on the ark, right? You're just sitting there just like, hey man, I really would love to see some sunshine, right? But this dude is the type of dude who's like, it's raining outside, pouring, and he's like, man, it sure is nice outside today. I don't know if y'all noticed, but man, I think we just our boat went over Mount Everest. I don't know if y'all noticed that, right? Just the happiest dude out there you'd ever imagine. Just always finding the positive in everything, right? And so no one really noticed, no one really saw it coming when it happened. And for him, there were some people who were like, I need to kind of take 2 steps back because I don't want to be associated with that. And I'm not here to call anybody out. I'm not here to say who those people are, but that's what happened. And then when unfortunately, when everyone found out he took his life, people were in shambles. They were broken apart. And I was like, but do you remember when there was, could you have said something, and it's not to blame anybody, right? Cause we all in that position. But did you say something? Did you talk to the individual like you would if that individual wasn't going through anything? And the honest answer is no. And it's unfortunate. It's really unfortunate, And I can't that the family with their my regards to that family and what their experience and what they're still experiencing to this day, but. You have to treat people like people, regardless of where you are. You have to treat people like people. I tell this to soldiers all the time. I was like, one day you're going to take this uniform off, and when you do, your accomplishments and your accolades are going to mean nothing to the average person unless they served, especially if they served with you when you got those accomplishments. But afterwards, most people will sit there and you'll say, "Oh, I served as well. I did 20 plus years," and they're going to be like, cool. And if they're really interested in the military and they kind of want to know more, they might ask you some questions, and you get to get some nostalgia, get to tell some stories, right? This is not an attack on MB, I promise. But you get to tell some stories. But then after the fact, after that, again, that person who's never served, the reaction is kind of like, cool story, bro. You know what I mean? Like, that's it.
Well, you definitely, you get thanks for your service for a lot of Americans that do take pride in the military. But I can honestly tell you that once you get out of the military, it's like starting over. It's a dog-eat-dog world unless you really dot your I's and cross your T's, and you could transition right from the military uniform into a civilian job, getting you a government job or something around the military. If you serve 20 plus years, we tend to want to work around a base, to stay around soldiers, airmen, whatever. It don't even matter about the branch. You just happy to be able to go on base, hit the PX, commissary, just to remind you of what you used to do. But when it comes to individuals, it's why we said on previous platforms here in these podcasts, you know, like I was sharing with you, you have to treat these soldiers like your family. You have to love on every last one of them. Even the one that's a thorn in your side, you still have to love on them, because God forbid, if they feel they have nothing to live for, you won't catch the signs. And there's always signs. It just don't show up where a person that is happy-go-lucky today, tomorrow decide they just want to end it all. It doesn't happen like that. It's just a very slow process. And as Q said, it's a lot of different things that lead up to it. You can only, you know, someone might say it's the last straw that broke the camel's back, but you don't know what the camel was carrying before that last straw. And if we don't take the time to look into these things, or to treat people in a way that they feel comfortable enough, or in a safe space, if you will, to open up and talk to you, you'll never see it.
Yep.
You'll never see it. They can hide things, because you got to think about it. If they've been hiding things from you for a longer period of time, that's a direct reflection of the fact that you don't even know your soldiers. That's you know, I'm just here to tell it like it is. It's the same within the church. That's why the Bible says, know them that labor among you. Just because you see me don't mean you know me. Just because I come around you, I smile and give you the courtesy of the day, don't mean you know me. As I said before, and I say it again, I've been at my church for almost 5 years. I can count on one hand how many people actually come close. They don't know me, but come close to knowing me. I say maybe 2 people in 5 years. So, look, this is very serious. And God is very serious about how we should love and treat one another. That's why it's the second greatest commandment, that you love your brother as you love yourself. Love your neighbor as yourself. That's the second greatest commandment. So how do you do that? Action speaks louder than words. I don't care whether you're in the military or you're a custodian at an elementary school. You could be the area superintendent. It doesn't matter about your title or your job. How do you treat people? Because remember, God said we're to treat each other as if you're doing it unto him, whether you're on top working with people beneath you, or you're the people looking up to the supervisors. God say treat each way, that up and down, the way you would treat God. He said, do this unto them as you would do unto me. That's what God is holding you accountable for. It goes back to whether we're talking about the husband and the wife, whether we're talking about the leaders in the church or in the military. It does not matter when it comes to God. It's one principle for everybody.
Yes. I had a question, and so when we broached this this topic, and then we said, hey, this is what we decided this is what we were going to talk about. There's one individual in particular that came to my mind, and I'm sure you can kind of probably guess who I'm referring to, because it's the one individual every time, if you know anybody of faith, if you will, brings up this topic, right? The one individual that gets thrown back into our face is Judas
Iscariot.
Yep. And you know, people will say, well, like, okay, is Judas in heaven? Is you know, or is he going to heaven? Because, you know, I thought isn't it a sin to kill yourself or to take your own life? And forgive me, YouTube. Sorry if that's banned. I don't know what's banned on here. But anyway, is it, you know, isn't it a sin to take your own life, right? Like, so aren't you damned to hell because you can't ask for forgiveness from the grave, if you will? So I don't want to pressure you with, you need to give us all of the answers, but I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are, especially for the audience who might be thinking the same thing, I've heard the same thing in their past.
Well, there's a lot of, this topic goes both ways. There are some that are from the older school in doctrine, believe that to take your life is a sin that you can't confess from, so you condemn yourself to hell. But then there's some of the new teaching that says once you give your life to Christ and you are saved, according to Scripture, death in and of itself does not take away your salvation. So you can wind up going to heaven even if you took your life away. As for me, I'm not here to protest either one when it comes to Scripture or how God is going to do it. I put that in God's hands. Because even Jesus said it's better for that man not to have been born than the man that betrayed him.
Yes.
Jesus mentioned that when he was talking about Judas Iscariot. But we do understand the mercy and grace that even everything that Judas did, some believe that if he would have said, Lord, I'm sorry for what I did, God would have forgiven him. But the guilt was so heavy that he threw the money back, didn't want the money, and he decided to take his own life, because you got to think about how heavy of a burden that was to know that it's your fault Jesus was hung.
Yeah.
You betrayed him. You know what I'm saying? That's very heavy for anybody and you've been with him all this time. You know he hasn't done anybody wrong, but you, for 30 pieces of silver, betrayed him. So, it goes back to what we were saying early on, to reiterate. We don't know what people are dealing with. It's what's pressuring them to want to say life is not worth living anymore. We really just don't know. And if we don't take the time to get to know people sincerely with humility and love and compassion, you're not going to get anything out of them, because if they felt comfortable enough to talk to you, they would let you know they need help. We have people every day that go to church and you ask them how they're doing, they'll say fine, but they can be falling apart on the inside. Their house could be upside down with disarray, or dealing with marital problems, dealing with little Ray is out there in the streets when he should be in school, or he telling mom where she can go. I mean, your house is literally on fire, but you put up a facade or a front when you're around others. That pride get in the way, and it's really it's the way the devil operates, to be honest with you. He loved to isolate us and make us feel like we're not worthy to have friends. We're not worthy to serve God. We're just filthy. We're no good. Don't nobody want us. Don't nobody care. And I couldn't tell you nothing more farther from the truth than that statement I just made, because I have Scripture that proves otherwise.
I find it in a little it brings peace to my soul, right? Because what you said in the end there, that is, it's the furthest from the truth when someone says, "Oh, they don't love you, or you're not loved, you're not cared for," and it's like, we may not get that human love that we would like, right? Because let's just be honest, right? There's a lot of people out there that no matter what you say, no matter what you do, no matter how much effort you put behind it, they will just never like you. And they will never give you that validation that you're looking for, right? And so in the end, you don't need their validation, right? One, I will say, validate yourself, right? Meaning give yourself give yourself that confidence and that love that you need to say, hey, I'm, to feel good, you know what I'm saying? Because it brings confidence. That's one. Number two, I had a conversation with an individual, and then one time they told me, they said, I don't know what my purpose is. I don't know what, I feel like I'm missing something. And I told them, I said, well, I think what a lot of us are missing, and what some of us don't want to acknowledge, is the fact that we're missing that relationship with God. Because when I was by myself, when I was doing things by myself as an individual, if you will, it was really hard. And when I hit a brick wall, right, it was really hard. But then when I had God in my life, and I was praying, I was kind of where I am now, right, where I am confident and comfortable in God, in everything, and almost everything in my life. Again, I'm not perfect. I'm crawl, walk, run. All about transparency here, and I quickly realized what it was that I was missing inside of me. That part of me that said I'm missing something. Right? There's something in here missing, and I don't know what it is. It was him. And then we talked about it, love, right? I remember I was doing the TDY4 hood, and I was just really in my prayer in the morning and just kind of praying and getting ready for the day. And it was an overwhelming feeling that I've never had before, that just kind of felt like someone was putting their hands around my heart to let me know, like, hey, I got you. You're good to go. And I'm a person that I don't cry. I can get a little speckles, right? You know what I'm saying? But I can't, to actually bring myself to tears. It's a very difficult thing to do, right? And I'm not saying I cried in that moment, but I can tell you, when the body is about to cry, when anybody's about to cry, you get this feeling. You can start to feel your eyes doing this thing, and you're, you know what I'm saying? Your lip, your bottom lip doing the thing, getting ready. You can feel it coming. You're like, oh, something's about to happen. And I could tell you, I was in that moment by myself, sitting there, just like, oh yeah, this is it. But it was a feeling of love that I had never experienced before. Of, man, God is real. He does exist, and he takes care of us, and he has our back no matter what, And we may not every day is going to be rainbows and sunshines. Not every day is going to be the day after, the great flood, right? But on those days when they are, it's not the rainbow that, that God gave us, right? After the great flood. Even on those days where it's raining and you're sitting on the boat. I don't know why I'm making that connection, but it's in my head. You're still sitting on that boat, if you will, and you're just like, God, man, how long are we gonna just experience this constant raining and this flooding? Because we've been getting higher and higher, and I'm ready to be done off this boat. You know what I mean? But you still had faith, right? And you're still like, but I got you. Whatever you need me to do, Lord, right? That's what we need to do in those moments. Like, hey, God's got my back. Let me pray. Let me get back into him. Let him, I know he's taking me somewhere. I may not know where, but I know he's taking me somewhere, and I'm loved. So I felt compelled. I don't know why. It was on my heart, on my mind to say that, but it's one of those things. So with Judas, though, right? Again, I'm not here trying to put him to be the end all be all answer for Judas, by all means, right? I'm not trying to do that, but I will say, I will ask, especially with Judas though, he's one of those individuals that's named in the Bible that was so close to Jesus and betrayed him, right? And so I'm not okay. So before context, I'm not trying to articulate what Judas did was okay, but Jesus did mention that it needed to happen, right? And so Judas, after the fact, right, and he tried to give back the money, and the Pharisees and the Sadducees. I never knew how to say it. But it starts with an S.
The Sadducees.
Man, every time I read it, I'm
Pharisees, Sadducees.
I'm like
Sanhedrin. I mean, they're known by Pharisees, Sadducees, Sanhedrin. All of them was the government, the leaders, if you will, the Jews that did not care for Jesus, and they was just looking for any reason to finally get him, and catch him. And the undercover agent just happened to be Judas Iscariot. Yeah, and he played his role. And me and my mom was talking earlier about what took place in the debacle of the debate. And she was saying, whatever's going to happen is going to happen. Everybody has a role basically to play. And as I shared with her, which some would probably agree, although the Bible is being fulfilled, does not make it any easier to witness.
Yes.
Because we're still here living with it. The good suffers with the bad in a lot of different cases. So when you see the suffering, you can't do anything about it. You could pray about it, but still to witness it is not easy to digest. So, we see all of this when it comes to suicides, or when it comes to depression, when it comes to feeling somewhat overwhelmed, if you will, when dealing with life in general. But I have a scripture. And this is why I say I love what God says about us and how he feels about it. Matthew 11:28-30 NIV is written in red. So Matthew is speaking on behalf of Jesus when he wrote this. It said, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, Weary and burdened. That's usually what it takes for somebody to want to give up. They're usually tired. They feel like they can't carry anymore. They just burnt out. And it says, I will give you rest. 29 says, take my yoke upon you and learn of me. And what that simply means is when you look at yoke, it's something that is used around oxen. When they're pulling, it's usually 2 by 2 and they pull in the same, so they're carrying the same amount. Jesus wants us to get a yoke with him because he is the one that's carrying the majority of the burden. So you're not by yourself. Plus, his yoke and his burden is light. For I am gentle and humble at heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. So first off, we have to first come to Christ when we realize, like you said, you found the love. When you came to Christ and you say, okay, I want to experience love. Okay, now you open yourself up for God to show you just who he is. And for anybody that never tried God, that never believed in God, and you're carrying these burdens on yourself, you're getting up on your own strength so you believe, you're doing all these things on your own. It's different when you know you have somebody in your corner that will validate you. As long as we try to go to people for validation, we will fail every time. You will be let down every time, because as soon as you're no longer needed or useful in that individual's life, you're going to kick you to the curve and you're going to be devastated, because we put a lot of weight on other people when we need validation. We put a lot of weight. We basically just give them our heart. And the response a lot of times can be devastating, because when they stab your little heart and beat it up, now you're hurt, and who you going to call? You definitely ain't going to call Ghostbusters.
I wanted to say it.
I know. I saw the movie just not that long ago. I just watched the other movie the other day. So, but God is there for you to call on him. And if you give God a try, I'm telling you, listen, when God say, prove me and see if I won't open up the windows of heaven, plural, and pour you out one blessing so big you won't have room enough to receive, I dare you to try this. If you never tried God before in your life, try it. Open up your heart, let God in, and I promise you, he will come, he will listen to you, he will be there. And like he said earlier, it doesn't take away the storms in life that we all go through, but it's different when you know you have somebody in your corner that love you for real, that's not looking for something in return. God don't do quick pro quo. Mm-hmm. God is straight up love. He loves you more than you can ever imagine. And the biggest disappointment is a lot of people that want to give up on life. They don't know how valuable they are to God. That is the biggest thing that gets me. And then, I'm not trying to bash the church, but sometimes the church make it worse. Because you go to the church as you are, like you're supposed to. You're all beat up. You drag yourself in there, hoping that somebody's going to give you a helping hand, help you up, teach you the ways of Christ, and then you wind up getting your feelings hurt in the church. Mm-hmm. And so now you like, okay, that didn't work for me. Let me go try something else. God is not pleased with the fact that we don't love each other the way we're supposed to. And you have every right to expect to be loved in any gathering of the saints. Any building that says they're the house of God, you should be able to go in that building and receive love, kindness, whatever you need. That's the medic station. That is supposed to be the catch-all so that you can have some support without anything in return. We're here to help you. We're not here to beat you down. The gospel is free. We're not asking for $100 to give you a special blessing, this special cloth and all this special anointing. I'm going to do a special prayer. The devil is a lie. The gospel is free. For anybody that will open up their heart and let God in, it's free. And God will literally show up and talk to you personally.
Have you ever experienced, came to my mind, have you experienced like God talking to you? Like, not like, maybe it was, I don't know if it's always a voice, right? But like, you know what I mean? Like, like some people want to like,
my mom and I joke sometimes, when you make a lot of mistakes and you're like, well, it's going to take God to talk to me from heaven, thou shalt not do this, or, something crazy. But God has got a very soft, sweet voice. And a lot of times if you have a prayer closet and you go in your prayer closet, you have to just be still. See how quiet it is in here? That's how quiet it needs to be in your prayer closet when you're meditating and just waiting to hear from God. He can talk to you through scripture. He can talk to you through people. I haven't seen where he talked through animals yet or anything like that, but I don't put anything past God, because God is just off the chain crazy like that. I'm like, what I try to get people to understand is God is informal. He is not so much formal like you see the priest and you got to do this a certain way. There are certain protocols and ceremonial things in the church. I got it. But God be tripping. God is just down to earth. He want to talk to you just like we're talking here. You just go as you are, And I'm telling you, if you let God in your heart through Jesus Christ, you can go and you talk to him. And I promise you, people will come and tell you things that you prayed about. And you didn't even know the person. They could be a stranger to you. That's God talking to you. You can go to church and hear a sermon, or you can catch a sermon on YouTube, and all of a sudden a prayer is answered. You had a question. I remember when I first met Q, and he said, wow, I had this in my heart for a year, and here it is. You answered it. That's one of my first podcasts with him. We don't know what God is going to do, who he's going to do it through. God is all over the place, and he's working 24/7.
He is, man. I told this story before, but I will tell you all again in relation to the topic of God speaking to us through people. So I, similar to what I told you when we first met on the first episode, I was like, I prayed about this a year ago, and sure enough, God answered, right? He supplied. And so in between my first and my second daughter, my wife unfortunately had a miscarriage. But prior to that, it was after that. After the miscarriage and whatever, I'm in Fort Huachuca. I'm getting some food on I think it was a Saturday or Sunday. I don't remember what day it was, but I'm getting some food, and I end up talking to this lady. She owns a shop on Fort Huachuca. And it's a wrap shop. So shout out to the lady. I don't remember her name, but she said she was writing a book. I'm going to find myself in Huachuca here soon. I'm going to go talk to her again and get that book put out here on the podcast for y'all to see it. But she says to me, we're talking, having a conversation. And keep in mind, I don't tell people, strangers, if you will. Now I do, because I'm on the internet. But before, I don't tell strangers, such as the name that I had picked out for my son since I was 15, 16 years old, which was Elijah. And because I was always so fascinated, I became really fascinated with the prophet Elijah and what he was able to do, and the faith, one, the faith that he had, but two, the kind of the swagger that he had when those others who claim to be priests are, cutting themselves, crying out the ball, and he was like, you should cry louder, you should scream louder, and then add some more fire, and then he was like, even more. For me, this is kind of like even more almost like a Frank Lucas, if you will. He was like, hey, do me a favor, y'all. I need y'all. I'm gonna dig a ditch, right? Dug a ditch. He's like, all right. Go get some water, and now I want you to pour water on the wood and get it all soaking wet. They did that 3 times. 3 times. He's only do that 3 times. He's like, all right, cool. Now step back. And pray to the Lord, right? And then it says the flames of heaven came down and engulfed this the thing into flames, right? And I just remember reading that and thinking like, oh, that's a gangster right there. That's, what I'm saying? That's a dude right there. Like, he was like, he knew from the jump. He was like, oh, all right, y'all want to test the one true God? All right, mess around if you want to. And like, he even said, he was like, hey, like, if I am wrong and Baal is the one true, and Baal, he answers he's the one true God. Well, yeah, you free to take my life. What? Oh my goodness. So anyway, Elijah's the name I picked out. I love that name ever since I read it for the first time, and I was understanding the meaning behind what he had did, and that was one of many things that Elijah did. But that one is if you've up and familiar with read the Bible before, that's the most common story that's told. And so I remember talking to this lady again. I haven't told her that I want to name my son Elijah or whatever the case might be, and she kind of interrupts me as I'm talking. It sticks to my head all the time because one of the things, I don't like being interrupted. But she interrupted me, and she goes, I don't know what it is, but every time when I see you, the name Elijah sticks out to me. And I'm like, so first and foremost, I'm like, is my rap ready? What are you talking about? And I kind of like in my head think to myself like, maybe I told her I wanted the name Elijah. I was like, and I think back to the conversation. I was like, definitely didn't come up in this conversation at all. And she said it to me again, almost to say, hey, let me reaffirm to make sure you heard what I said. But I don't know what it is. But every time I look at you, she said the name Elijah comes to my head, and I feel like I needed to tell you that. And I was like, I didn't tell you that. And I'm getting ready to tell her like, hey, that's the name that I've picked out for my first son. New customer walks in. She's like, hey, I got to go, but it was good talking to you. I'm in disarray at this point. I'm in shambles. You know what I'm saying? So I leave the sales shop, and the first person I call is my wife. I call my parents, and I'm like, I don't know. I've never experienced this before. This is a new feeling for me. But it was the first time. It was one of the first times as an adult that I realized that God does speak through people, and he will, when he wants to talk to you, when he has something to say to you, he'll be able to tell, he'll tell it to you, but you got to be willing to listen. You got to be in a place where you're willing to listen. And I think I was in a place where I would say I was in a place I was willing to listen, because sure enough, when that happened, it reaffirmed a lot of things for me in my faith, where I was like, I never thought like such things like that would happen to me. I thought it was fake. People would tell stories like that. I was like, that's not real. You just making that up, trying to make your sermon sound good. And so it was amazing to me to realize that how God can speak to us in so many ways. So how is that important, right? Why is that important to the overall topic in which we were talking about, which is someone unfortunately taking their life, suicide, right? Well, there have been moments in my life, in the Army, where the thought has crossed my mind, but I won't say that I sat there and said, this is it, right? But it's almost like a what if, right? I don't want it to seem like, like I'm out here trying to say like, I'm ready, no, we get so much training on it. You know what I mean? When the bad things happen in our lives, it's almost subconsciously the first thing that comes to mind, because that's how everybody relates. That's what everybody relates it to, that you have something bad going on in your life. So this is what leads soldiers down the path into unfortunately wanting to do that. And so when I was at my first duty station in my mass sergeant at the mass sergeant I was working for, he made going to work really hard, really difficult. There was nothing. It was a grown man who he must have been bullied when he was younger, because he felt like he had all the power, and he did. And he was an E8. I was a E3 at the time. So, or when I was going through potentially getting kicked out of the military, and I'm on 45 days extra duty, and I'm just feeling like a huge failure, let down to my family, to my wife, to my parents, to anybody who ever said they loved me and they care for me. That I'm close to. I feel like I'm just a huge letdown, and I'm like, it crossed my mind. But then I remembered, I was like, no, but this doesn't define who I am, and God's got my back. I don't know how. I don't know what he's going to do, but all I can do is sit here and pray and hope that I'm in this season and it sucks. But when I get out of the season, I'm going to do so much thank yous and thanks, because sure enough, the next season of my life was, I had a daughter. I had my second daughter. Beautiful, beautiful. Eden, I love her to death. Cutest little thing. My wife sends me videos all the time where she says, Dad, I'll work. And it makes me sad that I have to go to work. But I had my beautiful daughter, and then I started my podcast. and that was kind of like the transformation of how it happened, and just where I was in a hole, and I felt like I was in a hole, but then I was like, I'm gonna keep going. I'm gonna keep figuring this out. And sure enough, it out of that came this. Fast forward 2.5 years later, here we are.
Well, what I love about God is God meets us where we are. And God loves us so much, words can't really explain. So the only thing I can do is read scriptures. I got 2 more, and these are short. Psalms 139 and 14a from the NIV says, I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made.
Mm-hmm.
So, one, we have to understand how important we are to God. And when you know who you are and to whom you belong, you have a royal priesthood. You're royalty. You don't have to settle for what others say you are or the situation that you're dealing with at the time, because you're so much more than that. And the way the devil compound this stuff on our brains, he wants us to forget who we belong to and why we're here. So if he can continue to pile on that camel's back until the camel break, that's what he's going to do. And that's why it's important to look at who you hang around. Look at your circle of influence. Be around positive people that have achieved a lot more than you so they can pull you up. That's what I tell people. I don't want to be around somebody on the same level as me, because the blind leading the blind, you can't, what we going to run into the ditch together? That don't make sense to me. I'd rather be around somebody that know more than me. That's why I go to the elders. I go to people. I talk to my mom a lot. I talk to anybody that know more than me. Because I want to get better. I want to grow and get closer to God. The other ones in Psalms 8 and 5 NIV, it says, you have made them a little lower than the angels and crowned them with glory and honor. That's how David looked at what God did for us, how he looked at us, to be just under the angels, crowned with glory and honor. You are special in the eyes of God. You are somebody. Don't keep doing this by yourself. Open up your heart, let God in. And I'm telling you, you'll never listen to other people trying to tell you what you can and cannot be, what you can and cannot do. I've listened to that a lot in my life, especially during the 30 years in the military. I wouldn't achieve this particular rank. I'll never be able to do that. Look at what God is doing with somebody that was supposed to be a nobody. And I'm telling everybody about somebody. So, it's the same similar situation to Q with how he started the podcast. Look at how dark his life had turned, but look how God can reach down and pick him up and pick me up. Everybody has something that they're dealing with. Everybody has something in their closet. And we're not here to look at anybody's closet, because that's not necessary. You don't have to validate yourself to anybody. The only person you should be validating yourself with is God. He's the only one that have every right to tell you what you've done, what you haven't done, what you can be, what you haven't been, when he know what he put in you. He know your talents. He know your gifts. He know why he made you. So if you're searching, trying to figure out why is this happening or why is that happening, understand one thing. Everything happens for a reason, and whatever seeds you plant, that you will so also reap. So stop planting bad seeds. Just stop. Don't do it. Because when they come back up, they gonna come up. You make a bed, you're gonna have to lie in it. But one thing about God, even when you make the bed, he'll still give you a pillow and a blanket to sleep on.
Oh man, it's funny when you said that. And the first thing that came to mind was, "He without sin cast the first stone." Right? So easy for us to sit here and say, well, your sin is that, or your sin is this. You've done this. You've done that. You've done this thing. You're going to do that. And it's like, hey, are you sure you want to be doing that? I don't know if you know what comes with that, but, while what you're saying might be factual and hold some truth, I recommend and I encourage you, calm down with the pointing the fingers and directing who you believe and judging who you believe is unworthy, if you will. That is that. And then my final point with this would be the validation piece. I used to seek validation for people, try to seek validation for people all the time. It was something that for me, it was kind of like in order for me to be able to say I've accomplished something, I've done something, or I'm proud of myself, I needed validation, or I wanted validation from others, from other people, right? Because if I got that, that meant I was doing good and I was on the right track. Well, it's funny how while I might have gotten some of that validation, human words only have they have little effect. You know, they don't last long. You know what I mean? Before you're almost like you're chasing a high, where you want to or need to hear it again, and you probably never going to hear those words again, right? Where it's like, hey, I'm proud of you, right? Or they don't mean the same thing. You don't feel the same way when you heard it the first time. And so I was, you know, when I was going through the issue where I failed the drug test and I had to, you know, I was going through all that jazz and whatnot. When I got to my new duty station, I wanted the validation of other people, but then very quickly I was like, no. I have the validation of the people that I should care about already validate me every single day. I'm pointing behind because that's where my room is, but that's my wife and my 3 daughters. They validate me every single day. They let me know for them I am good enough. I am the dad, I am the husband that they need and that they want, and they're happy that they wouldn't want me to be anywhere else and wouldn't want me to be anybody else. Now, still going to change a little bit and grow, but still they're happy with who I am. You know what I mean? That's one. Number 2, I had to become comfortable in my own skin and say, I don't need their validation. My family's validation helps, but the validation, the love and the validation that I get from God every single day is the only thing that I really need to feel good. And when I started to realize that's all I needed, and no human words or words from another man are going to make me feel as amazing as God does, I had this confidence about me. Again, I almost, I dare say sometimes I almost felt like Elijah, and I'm like, yeah, you should yell louder. Go ahead. Hey, you know what? Look, I'll give you some fire right here out of my pocket if you want it. I'll have you get started, where like the point where I can walk in a room and like, I can know that probably a good portion, 90% of the people don't like me or don't care for me. And I can walk right past them. And it upsets them. I can see it. I can really good at reading body language. It upsets them that they're like, why isn't he bothered by the fact that I'm clearly upset with him or I don't like him? Unbothered, unfazed. Amen. That don't mean nothing to me. I tell people in the Army all the time, I'm here to do a job. And the Army does not pay me to make friends. I don't need to make friends. I'm not required to make friends. However, if I do make friends, that's an extra added bonus. I'm always willing and always happy to make friends. But I am not required, or I'm not here with a goal in mind to make friends. But that being said, I am able to go into a lot of places with a lot of confidence. Some people find it intimidating. Some people are like, I don't know how you do that. Like, you just seem like you're just okay. I'm like, because I understand when I walk into a room, I don't need validation from the man or the woman that I'm talking to. All right, I'm here I need their assistance, whether in the military or personally, whether I'm in Lowe's or whatever. I don't need their validation. I need their assistance. They work here for a reason. Now, if they're not capable to do their job, I will gladly go find somebody else who is capable to do their job so I can get what I need. But I don't need their validation first when I come in here. You know what I mean?
Well, definitely, we're not here to be anybody's footstool or doormat, if you will.
Yes.
We're here to let our light shine and love everybody, treat everybody with dignity and respect. But at the same time, as we've talked about to great length now, your validation, your purpose, your whole being and everything about you should be about God.
Yes.
And as long as it's about God and you care about your relationship with Him, nothing else matters, whether that's family, because family can fall out at times, friends can fall out at times, co-workers at work can fall out at times, and that list can go on. But one person that will never leave you nor forsake you is Jesus Christ. So as long as you have a relationship with Jesus, that should be the relationship you worry about. You want to stay in good standings with Him. You want to take up your cross, deny yourself, and pick up your cross and follow Him daily. You want to do that daily. You can't take time off it, because if you put it down, you might not pick it back up. And you can't allow a situation with other people may cause you to put your cross down, because the devil will just put so many different scenarios in your way to the point you'll forget you're a Christian. You'll forget you're not like everybody else. You're supposed to be different. And that difference is every day. It's not just temporary. It's not just on Sunday. You got to be a Christian 24/7, 365. Blessed is he that is found doing the work of the Lord when he come. Because he's going to come, and it's going to be some people. When the Bible say that, that means it's going to be some people caught not doing the work of the Lord when he comes. So
yes.
I always look at the fork in the roads in the Bible, because the Bible has a lot of forks in the road where if God say one thing as a possibility, that simply means the reason it's mentioned is because you may decide to go a different direction. And the blessing is for the one that keeps God's will in his word over here. Not for the one that puts it down over here based on the situation, circumstances, and or friends that you want to make feel good or you want to look out for. Some of y'all so-called friends, you need to let them go.
Yes.
You got the wrong friends. You gave your life to Christ, but you know they didn't give their life to Christ, so you're unequally yoked. And if you keep hanging around them, you're going to find yourself catering to them, wanting to be comfortable with them, and it don't work that way.
It does not. Man. Well, I thank y'all for joining us. Appreciate y'all coming on. If you're on YouTube, I was going to say the YouTube. If you're on YouTube and you've caught us and you were joined us on the live stream, appreciate it. Thank you. Share this with your friends, please, and share this with a lot of people, because I think there's a lot of people out there who can benefit from this. And that's from any of the episodes that we've done, from this one to the very first episode that we did. Go check that out. Please go check that out. And be prepared. There's going to be a lot more. There's a lot more coming, right? And, I'm excited for the future. There's been very few times in my life where I can say that I'm excited for the future, but I can honestly say I am excited for the future. I don't know what it holds. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know I don't know a lot of things, when it comes to the future. I'm just going to be honest with y'all. I don't know anything when it comes to the future. However, I do know there's going to be happiness and there's going to be some sadness, and through all of that, I will always have God with me. My family always have God with me, or God with them, and we will get through those seasons in our life in which we don't think we can't get out of this. So, that being said, thank you for joining us on this episode of Mediocre Dads Bible Study. Go check out MB's book, Volume 2. It is now out. It will be in the description. Go check that out. It's on Amazon. Purchase it on Amazon. When you read it, when you get it off Amazon, please leave a review, right? Because, a lot of people, when you read books and they go check out and they want to see what some of the reviews about, leave a review so let those future potential readers know what they're getting into, right? Because they can read the about, but they like to hear from other readers on what it's about and what they thought of the book. So please leave a review wherever you purchase the book, whether on Amazon. If you go to Barnes & Noble, it's online on Barnes & Noble?
Yeah, online.
If you go to online on Barnes & Noble, it will be on there as well. So please check out his Volume 2. If you haven't checked out Volume 1, check out Volume 1 as well on Amazon and on Barnes & Noble online as well. Hey guys, we will be back here, not this coming up Thursday, but the following Thursday, which I don't know what the date is at the top of my head. But we will be here. I'm going to see what the date is. I'm thinking 11th. We'll be here on the 11th of July. Listen, guys, it is the 4th of July coming up this Thursday. Super exciting, right? Fireworks, America, freedom, all that jazz. American flags running around, people with big trucks. I got a truck, so, putting an American flag on my truck is going to happen. But enjoy your 4th of July. Have a safe 4th of July, okay? Be safe what you're doing, whether you're doing fireworks, whatever. Follow the laws, your state laws, if you can do fireworks. Because God forbid you do something, you hurt yourself. But
and we're going to be at 8 o'clock next time.
Yes. Thank you. 8 o'clock. So on the 11th of July, we will be starting at 8 o'clock. So look, I gotta help out my East Coast people on the East Coast time. Okay, I get it. 8 o'clock is still 9 o'clock, but it is better than 9:30. And you may catch the beginning, you may not catch the end, but you can always come back. That's the best part about YouTube, right? You can always come back and see again and kind of finish watching where you left off. So we will be starting 8 o'clock from this point on. Again, I apologize for the technical difficulties. Enjoy your 4th of July. Episode of Mediocre Dads, regular if you will be out on Thursday on the 4th of July. You weren't going to miss that one. It's definitely one where his last name's Holly, we talk about being in our time in Afghanistan. We weren't together, but we were different times, and we went and kind of our own experiences in Afghanistan. And so definitely good conversation there. Definitely check it out when it comes out on the 4th of July at 10 o'clock in the morning Central Standard Time. That being said,
last but not least, if you're contemplating suicide, call the hotline, reach out to somebody. Understand that if you haven't gave God a try, give him a try. He will meet you where you are. He won't tell your business. He won't treat you any kind of way, but fill you with love and hope, and he will give you a fresh beginning. So for our hearts go out to anybody that have lost loved ones due to suicides. We understand that void is there, and we pray for you that you'll have mercy and grace spread upon you in your time of grief, especially when these holidays come around and that individual is absent. So understand, God understand all of that, and he will comfort you in your time of need.
Absolutely, guys. Hey, thank you for joining. I'm Quan, host of Mediocre Dads, where being mediocre is choice. We have to refuse to be mediocre. That is Minister Boggan, better known as MB. And until next time, guys, thank you for joining us, and have a good day. Mediocre Dads out.